Literally everything that you want to draw starts with perspective. This is the piece I was working on here. I was wanting to draw a character, and I didn't expect it to turn into this big illustration. But if I turn off all my layers, you'll see this perspective grid here. So I started this drawing with a perspective grid in mind, um, and this character. I didn't expect to create a full illustration out of it, but that's how it ended up coming out. Um, but doing this will just make your character drawings feel a lot more alive, a lot more dynamic in it of itself, just by plotting down a simple 2 point perspective grid or whatever kind of perspective you want to try out in the drawing. It'll help you create that sense of depth that may be missing if your drawings feel flat. Because this is cool, right? We just have the character in this space, but once we turn on a or draw a perspective guide, we can get a lot more depth in the drawing. And so that's after that point, that's when I started adding in my background of all these layers real quick. Yeah, that's when I sketched in his background. It's just something simple, something I wanted to uh, put in there to make the drawing have more of a story. And so if you want to just get even more depth or um, make your character drawings a little bit more interesting, you can do this where you add a simple perspective grid and start drawing a background inside of that. And after that, that's when I started rendering and adding all the details and things like that. This is like a step by step, basically layer by layer, what I was doing. Not in this exact order. Kind of render everything all together, including the character. And so this is where I pretty much started. This was the next part of the drawing, where I have a character and the background laid out, and then I put in all of the base colors and the basic lighting. I wanted basically 70% or 80% of the piece to be in shadow, and then the 20% where the focal point was, which is the character's face and the character to be in the light. That's what I was thinking about when I was uh, coloring this. Is I wanted basically 80% of this drawing to be in shadow, and then I wanted the other 20% in light, where the focal point is. Depending on the story you want to tell, is how you can use that. But yeah, you can use color and lighting in your composition like that, where you play with the light. So that's what I was thinking of when I was doing the lighting for this piece. But after that, I just go in and I'm starting to render everything. So I think I started with the character. Yeah, I moved the character up because she is the focal point of the image. I wanted her to be bigger in the composition. Although I did want her full body to be in the picture at first, I was like, I might as well make her a little bit bigger because she is the focal point of the illustration. So that's what I did. And then after that point, that's when all the rendering begins, and I really start to refine everything and get it to the point I want it to get to. Uh, and so that's when I start rendering all the stuff in the background. I add a blur and just start rendering, adding more detail in the foreground, in the midground, and the background. In the background, you can see that I blurred it so that the focus is again on the character. Because I think I can show you real quick. Yeah, I basically copied and pasted uh, my background layer so that it's easier for me to blur it. So this was the original layer with no blur, but you can tell how there's kind of like a competition for attention when the background isn't in a blurred kind of a style, I guess. But I want all the attention to be on the character's face, so that's why I blurred the background out. So at that point, like I said, I'm rendering everything all together, not like one by one. So sometimes I move to the character, sometimes I move to the landscape. It just depends on what I'm feeling and how much time I have to to draw it. But yeah, this is the finished piece here with everything rendered. And then I added a simple little color adjustment layer above the background. to adjust the colors quickly. But it all starts with perspective, really, and that's what one thing I gotta get better at is just even just to practice, just to get in the habit of having some type of perspective grid that you are using to practice to get that sense of depth in the piece. And I wanted to practice that again. So here I created another illustration with the same character as before, but I wanted it to connect to the story I'm telling. And so I imagine that this is Omari's auntie and her nephew enjoying each other's company, walking down this little road. And that's another way you can level up your illustrations as well. It's just telling a story, simple story. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. This character is walking down this path from this castle, and then these two characters meet up and are talking, having a good time. And then this third illustration I want to do for this set involves a monster. I think I'm going to do 4 because I'm going to figure out how to incorporate the monster here in this next illustration I'm going to do. So this is the next one I'm going to do, where Omari and his auntie are hanging out, relaxing, and just chilling. And then in the 4th illustration, I'll have the monster attack them and see what happens in that one next. But yeah, hopefully this gives you like an encouragement to just like really use perspective, especially when you start a sketch, start a drawing. In this piece, same thing. A lot of times when you draw natural landscapes and environments, sometimes the perspective grid will come in handy, but it won't really line up with anything because you're drawing a natural environment instead of like drawing buildings and stuff. But you can still use it to draw natural landscapes and stuff. It definitely helps you create that sense of depth that you need in your pieces, in your drawings. But yeah, if you're not drawing a building or anything, it might seem kind of useless, but it's really not, because it's going to help you think in a 3-dimensional space instead of a 2D flat plane. And so I just encourage you to even just like create a quick little perspective grid real quick. This is how I usually make it. Clip Studio, you can do it really fast if you go to layer, and then you go to ruler, frame, and create perspective ruler. Then you can choose which one you want to create. You can do 2-point perspective grid, and then all your lines will line up with that grid. So it's easier to draw on it, but you don't have to do that. It's a quick and fast and easy way to do it if you like to do it that way. But when I'm just sketching an idea, I'll just create something like this for a 1-point perspective grid. And usually I don't even use red, especially when I'm sketching a thumbnail or something. I'll just plot a vanishing point down the horizon line, and then just lines that converge to that point, like that. And then I'll start sketching what I want to sketch on it. Lower the opacity, and if I was drawing buildings, I would draw buildings. But that's basically what I did for this piece, where I drew a 2-point perspective grid to figure out the horizon line, the eye level of the camera where we're seeing the image, and then I plot out all the 2 vanishing points with just the straight line tool like this that converge to 1 point over here in the distance somewhere. You don't need to know exactly where it's at, as long as it looks right to you. And that's why you really got to practice drawing things in perspective, so that you know whether or not your grid looks right. But yeah, that's a simple way to start making your character illustrations look a lot more dynamic, a lot more to have a lot more depth in it. So yeah, just plot out a simple horizon line in your piece or on your piece of paper, and you want a vanishing point. And then you can just draw them manually or use the tool that your drawing program has. But perspective is really easy once you get the hang of it, because you can do this with any perspective. You can do it with 1-point, 2-point, or 3-point perspective. You can draw a horizon line where you want your eye level to be, and then you can draw vanishing points, or the lines that converge to a vanishing point, right? Need another pen. And then the lines to converge to another one. Like that. That's why I like using the straight line tool. So I don't have to worry about the pressure opacity with certain brushes. But it's as simple as this. If you want more of a refined perspective grid, then definitely use the program's tools to your advantage. But it's as simple as that, laying a perspective grid out and then drawing on top of it. I can draw a scene out like just off of this alone, and it's very easy to do that. But yeah, don't forget about perspective. It's very important if your drawings are looking kind of flat. Definitely implement that. Definitely do that. That's what I did with this piece here. Let me see if I can find that perspective grid real quick. Oh yeah, it's right here. Turn that up. This is my perspective grid for this piece. This is where it started. And you can see here that I actually wanted a more slanted horizon line. I wanted it to feel a little bit uneasy. Because there's something watching them, something stalking them in the woods, this monster, right? So wanted that to to convey that sense of unease just with the horizon line itself. And so that's why I wanted to slant the composition, the horizon line, just a little bit. These were the first sketches I had. And I was adjusting the perspective grid as well. Like maybe I wanted a lower horizon line. When you have a lower horizon line like this, you're looking up at a subject matter. If I have a higher perspective grid, we're looking down at something, so it's a bird's eye view. And so you want to keep that in mind when you are drawing as well. This first sketch here, I was thinking of having a more worm's eye view of the monster and then battling it, but I decided I wanted this illustration to be a little bit more calm, and that's how I got to this point here. But yeah, don't forget about perspective. Practice drawing in perspective. Definitely the easiest things to draw in perspective are natural environments. So that's what I like to do because it's pretty easy. But I definitely got to get better at drawing buildings and things like that. But yeah, don't forget about perspective. It's going to help you draw a lot more dynamic scenes. And especially if you want to draw comics, you're going to need perspective. You're going to need to know how to draw in perspective. So don't forget about it. And yeah, hopefully this video helped you. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.